And let me share my screen. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
Yeah, happy St. Patty's Day to you.
Yeah. Sharing the wrong one. All right, let me try this. Okay. All right. See if I can do that. There we go. Okay. So I can't see Teams anymore. So Alden and the group, if you would let me know if somebody's got a question, that'd be great.
I will.
Thank you. Okay. So AGC Safety Pride, right off the bat, program recognition indicating dedication and excellence to safety. That is the acronym. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that really means in practice as we go through the PowerPoint here. But Pride, to give you a little bit of the history, it was started in the early 2000s. It's AGC's Beyond Compliance program that's designed to challenge you guys to improve your safety programs year over year. That's why the continuous improvement goals are listed in the program review form. It's intended to provide recognition for companies who engage in these best practices and meet the standards we expect to see within Pride. And it's a unique program. So there's no other AGC chapter in the nation that has a Pride program. And to my knowledge, there's no other federal or state OSHA plan that has an agreement like we do with Oregon OSHA. And that agreement is represented in Program Directive A-264, where we talk about the focused inspection criteria. And the gist of that is if a compliance officer shows up on your site for a basic comprehensive inspection and you are a Pride winner, that inspection then becomes a focused inspection, which limits the scope to evaluating just the focus 4 hazards. So falls, struck by, caught between, and electrocution. And then they'll also look for emphasis program stuff like heat stress. But for the most part, it narrows the scope of their inspections. And that is a unique cooperative agreement we have with Oregon OSHA. What changed this year? So we updated the website and we updated the program review form. Really, I guess, first of all, the spirit of continuous improvement internally to make sure that Pride is clear for you all, that there's kind of consistency across expectations and that the information is fully available for you. I felt like when we were looking at the website in the off season for Pride that it could use just a little bit of a facelift, and it could use we could put more basic information about the program on there. So we did update the website too, and we'll look at that as the presentation continues here. But I did want to touch on some statistics to highlight just the safety efforts and the results of those efforts for our Pride winners. So this is looking at statistics from the 20 winners from last year, the group averages, and some of the comparisons that we see for DART rate and total recordable case rate within their NAICS code. So if you can see on the right-hand side under the insight column, it says 53% below Oregon construction average of 1.5, and then about 58% below the state average of 3.2. So if you all are familiar with NAICS codes, basically how they work is DCBS will go out and gather injury and illness information for companies within a little defined NAICS code, NAICS being North American Industry Classification System. And then they'll publish those statistics annually. And we look at those and say, okay, what's the benchmark? You know, so if you're in this NAICS code of 2.3 something something for construction, the injury rates are going to be listed and days away, restricted, or transferred, meaning somebody got hurt and it's a disabling claim. You know, that's happening at about a 1.5 rate. And the group average is 0.71. So less than half of the overall construction average in Oregon. And then if you see in the middle columns average threshold, what that represents is because the NAICS codes are specific to industry, what I did was I went through all the specific NAICS codes of the 20 Pride winners that we had this past year and found their individual DART rates and total recordable injury rates, and then averaged those out. So it's a little bit more specific. It's a little more precise in terms of just how far below the injury rates that Pride companies are getting. And so you can see that's represented in the 61% below those rates. So it's just a more precise representation of how well pride companies are doing in keeping folks off their 300 logs and keeping people safe and preventing injuries. And then you see companies with a 0 DART rate. We had 6 out of 20 pride winners have a 0 DART rate. Okay. And then just the last little bit on statistics here, some mod rate and loss ratio stuff. The group average for all 4 years for the mod rate was 0.8, but you can see the group average for the qualifying year, which is the current policy year you're in, was 0.66. So that's really exceptional. You can see the range of mod rate at 0.48 to 1.29. I wanted to highlight that because you can be over a 1 in previous policy years as long as your current policy year is 1 or less. So don't get scared away just because you might have a mod in previous years over 1. We do want to see those 3 years of mod rates represented, including the current policy year, just so we get a chance to look at trends and have conversations with you about where things are going injury and illness wise. And then you can see on the loss ratio side, that's again some exceptional statistics there compared to national averages. I found that national work comp averages for loss ratios hovers at about 50%, and for the group of pride winners, boy, it's real low. It's 0.03, so 3%, and then you can see the range there, and just number of years where the mod rate was less than 0.75, and loss ratio was below 0.1. 3 out of 4 for both those. So again, I just wanted to highlight some of the really good statistical performances that we're seeing from pride accounts, and give recognition for that. So speaking of recognition, here's the ad, or a look at the ad that was run in the Daily Journal of Commerce for our pride winners and the Rose Award winners. So yeah, we'd like to highlight the good work that everyone's doing. And certainly everyone who wins pride does get the award at the annual business meeting in January, February every year. But we just want to take that a step further and be, sincere and very public about our recognition for the good work at keeping people safe that these accounts do. Okay. So let's get into what pride is and what it does and kind of the process. Okay. 3 main screening elements here: the application, the program review, and then the job site audits. The applications are now being accepted, and we wanted to standardize this process as much as possible. So going forward from here on out, applications will be accepted every March, starting on March 1st every year, and then the season will end September 30th every year. So that's a 7-month season. That's a good long time to be able to get in the program, get evaluated, and hopefully become a pride winner. But that's the cadence, and that information is also on the website. So just so it's clear for everyone, those are our timelines. Applications, we stopped taking those at the end of July because there's only so much time we can work with once summer hits. So applications, the window is March 1st to July 31st. And then once you submit your application, we move on to the program review and job site audits, as long as those are you're passing each stage of that. Okay. Application process. So I think I saw a number of returning pride winners here on the webinar, but if you're new to the pride program, we've got some screening criteria, okay, statistically and then kind of qualitatively. We'll look at the statistical criteria first, and it's up on the screen, and that's why I showed some of those statistics earlier, is to give everyone an idea of, kind of the caliber of companies that we're dealing with, and the way that they're able to manage injuries and get people back to work if they do have injuries, and overall keep people off their 300 logs. So a mod rate less than or equal to 1 for the current policy year. Average incurred loss ratio less than 40% over the course of the last 3 policy years. And we want to make sure you're not having any work-related fatalities, of course, in the previous 3 calendar years. And then 0 closed, willful, or repeat OSHA citations in the previous 3 calendar years. And then that bottom bullet refers to the DART rate and incident rate that we looked at. So within your NAICS code, you want to have an average DART rate and incident rate less than the industry averages as published by DCBS within your NAICS. Okay. So that is the kind of statistical criteria. And I wanted to show you guys right here. It says minimum safety program requirements. I wanted to get into that here just a minute. So let me share my screen and I'll change what I'm showing you here. Okay. So we're looking at the qualification application now. And this is what we're expecting everyone to submit when they are pursuing PRIDE. It's got your submission instructions right up front, kind of all the general details here. And then it has a statistical considerations. So this is, just a repeat of what we looked at. A lot of criteria, just the basic here, information about your company, nature of your business, the primary contacts. And I'm most interested in talking about this page here, which is the qualification application. And it has 15 questions that we're expecting these questions to be answered yes. Because really this is kind of the qualitative side of PRIDE. We've got the statistical criteria that we want you to pass. And then as far as, hey, do you have these programs in place? Are you doing this? Are you meeting these criteria? We're going to want to see yes on this. Having a written safety and health policy, accident prevention program in place, signed by a company principal, on and on. I won't read them all. One thing I'll draw your attention to, because we'll talk about it later, is this question 15. Does your firm require sub-tier contractors to meet or exceed both your company safety policies and federal and state OSHA regulations? That's a big one for us. And we talked about it this PRIDE off season, but for general contractors and anybody who's subcontracting work, this is on the minimum qualification sheet. And so this word right here, require sub-tier contractors to meet or exceed your company safety policies and federal or state OSHA regulations. That's a big one. That requires a lot of effort, oversight, and kind of consistent site management and engagement. And when you say yes to this, we want you to really mean it. And we want to see that as we go through the program review and the job site audits, especially if your primary role is a GC, because we want PRIDE to be meaningful for you. And we want especially anybody in a general contractor position or anybody doing subcontracting to demonstrate the leadership required to make that question a yes. Because that's got to have leadership. It's not easy to require people to do that. It's not easy to be out in the field and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. You need to stop it now. You need to change this, whatever it may be. That requires sincere leadership. And that's what we want out of PRIDE. And that's why PRIDE, I think, is special, is that a lot of companies who carry the PRIDE Award year over year have really baked that into their culture. And you can see that just with the nature of kind of their ongoing success with safety and just in general with business. So I wanted to take a moment to highlight those. And let me jump back to my PowerPoint. Okay. Actually, real quick, why don't I jump over to, since we talked about the statistics, I'll show you this. This is our statistical qualification form. We want to see this with your application as well. And it's pretty straightforward. Hopefully, pretty straightforward here. You enter your name, your mod rate for the current policy year, and then the previous 3 policy years, your federal employer ID number. That should be found within your work comp policy documents. You should have an FEIN number listed somewhere in there. Your primary NAICS code, and then select the NAICS code that most accurately describes your industry. So what that means is if construction, all NAICS codes in construction start with 2.3. Let's say you're a 2.3.6.1.5.2 or something. The most accurate representation of that is going to be 2.3.6.1. So wherever those numbers ended for you right there. And then you would just fill in your loss ratio for the most three recent completed policy years. And then your OSHA 300 log information right here. Just fill those in for the 3 years. And then in the background, this is all checking that for us and helping us understand whether or not you qualify statistically. So just to give you guys a quick overview on this too, okay?
Hey, Holt, can I mention something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're entering in the NAICS code, you're looking for the closest one, but it's worth mentioning you're always going to round down. So right now it shows 236100 residential building. If you're 236199, and there's a lot of different ones, you wouldn't go up to 200. You'd go back down to the nearest NAICS code.
Very well said. Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. Okay, let's see. I'm going to toggle back over to my PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Okay, so the application process, we covered the statistical criteria for entry, the safety program requirements, NAICS code. It's got to start with 2.3, so you got to be in the business of construction, and applications close on July 31st. Okay. Getting into the program review. Okay. We made some revisions a couple years ago that made the form align pretty well to Oregon OSHA's SHARP Form 33, which is the 58 element evaluation form. It's not 100%, says the exact same thing, but I think the intent really matches quite substantially. Okay. And instead of just sharing here, I guess I'll bring up the form. And next time I'll figure out how to toggle between things without having to stop sharing the screen over and over again. Okay, there's our qualification. There's our program audit. Okay. So we made some changes this past Pride off season, and I want to highlight those here. So you can see this is the new section, and we're talking about minimum criteria to pass the program audit. Is outlined in bold in each section and tied to a question from the qualification checklist from the Pride application. Okay, so what does that mean? It means when we come down to this first section, and this is a representative of questions that are throughout the program audit. You'll see this here, written safety and health policy signed by company principal with an emphasis on company commitment to safety and health. That comes directly from the qualification checklist, questions 1 and 2. So if you can see right here, written safety and health policy signed by company principal. Okay. And we did that.
Hey, Holt.
Yes.
We did have a question come in on the chat.
Yes.
Did you want to address that now or later in the presentation?
Oh, please go ahead.
One of the questions was, will you please review the industry average numbers we are compared to in order to qualify?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's jump to that now. I have the table up. Okay. So this is the most recent version of the Oregon Occupational Injury and Illness Survey Summary Table, calendar year 2024. This is what we look at. Okay, and we take an average of the previous 3 years of these. So if you go down to the NAICS codes tables, here's where we're looking. Okay, NAICS code, construction. You can see 236. Usually they have a 2.3 right there. I don't know why it's not there right now, but either way, you can see 236, 2362, and on down. This little section represents construction right here. Okay. And these are the rates that we use for comparison. So total recordable cases right here, that rate represented for each sub-NAICS that you see in construction. And then over here, cases with days away, transfer of restrictions. So this is the DART rate section. and your total DART rate is going to be right here at this total column. This is 1.5. So just like we saw in that statistical table earlier, construction overall averages, so 3.2 total recordable cases and 1.5 DART rate. This is what we're looking at when we're doing those comparisons. And we're doing a 3-year average that's based on a calendar year. So every year, DCBS publishes these tables. There's a 2-year lag. So we're in 2026. The most recent is going to be from 2024. And so we take the previous 3 years of data and average it out to try to make it smooth so that no one year has a strange peak or valley in the data, but it generally should represent some pretty good industry averages. And then we compare your individual rates against those averages. Does that answer the question?
I think you covered it good.
Got it? Okay.
And I
Sorry.
wanted to weigh in real quick. There's
Please.
lots of people that have wanted to go look at the sheet, do the 3-year average, and see if they qualify. Probably the easiest way to figure that out is really quick. Fill out the stat sheet that we make available at the beginning of the pride season each year, and we can figure it out pretty quick. There's no reason to go in and do the math ahead of time. It does take long to fill out that stat sheet, submit it to your assigned SMC, and we can get back to you pretty quick.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Nathan.
And another thing just to mention while we're here is that, maybe you can touch on this, Hold, if you want, just that we, as AGC, have an agreement with Oregon OSHA regarding construction. And we've had some in the past have NAICS code that are outside of construction, and that's doesn't fall within the PRIDE program. And you can add on to that if you think necessary.
Now that makes sense to me. And I think really because we want to, the whole point is preventing injuries on job sites. And these NAICS codes represent workers on job sites. So I think that, that's the spirit. All right. So jumping back over real quick to the program review. As I was saying, okay, the application is going to list out your minimum qualification criteria right here, questions 1 through 15. Okay, let's say you meet the qualification statistically, and then you say, yeah, we've got all this stuff in place. During the program review, once you submit all your application materials and you meet the thresholds and everything's in place, your 300 logs, you've submitted your 300 logs, you've submitted a copy of your safety program, we've got the signed application, we've got the statistics form, we've got everything we need from you, and it looks good, we're going to say, okay, yeah, let's go on to the program review. And that's when we're going to sit down with you, or in person, virtually, however it works, and go through this document with you. And that's where this year, like I said, we did update some of these questions to make sure that we're really carrying over those minimum qualifications into the program review, and we're just double checking that, hey, you've got this in place, because that's one of the minimums for PRIDE. Okay. And I don't know if we need to go through this entire form. I can show you on the website where you can download it and take a look at it. But you could just see as you go through, there are some of these that have been highlighted or made bold, and it shows you the question from the qualification application that it's pointing to. Okay. Okay. Let's see. See if I can do this here. Let me jump back over to my PowerPoint. There we go. All right. Job site audits. So let's say we go through the program review. Everything looks really good. You've got these programs in place. I guess I should say one more thing about the program review. For new PRIDE companies, we are going to ask that you write down at least 2 or 3 continuous improvement goals that you're looking to implement this coming year, so that if you renew Pride for next year, we have some evidence that, yeah, you set your goal, and then we can look back and say, okay, you achieved your goal, and here's what you did. Okay. And then for renewing Pride accounts, right at the beginning of the program review, we're going to ask, hey, here were your goals from last year. How'd you do? Tell me if you achieved them. And the answer needs to be yes. We need some sort of affirmative, yeah, we did this. And so that's why it's important, especially right now, very early in the Pride season. If you're a renewing Pride account and you're having trouble with your continuous improvement goals, let your assigned SMC know right now, so that we can look at maybe adjusting those goals and still having you qualify for Pride within the application window, because we still got a few months until the end of July. Okay. So wanted to touch on that real quick. Once we're done with the program review, we're going to go to the job site audits. Okay. Unannounced site audits. And I know that's not always everyone's favorite, to make them unannounced, but one of the recommendations that we have for everyone who's in Pride is that once you finish the program audit section, it's a good idea to either in an all staff meeting, a safety committee, or blast out an email to all your superintendents and foremen, whatever works best for you. Really communicate to your field level supervision that, okay, in the next couple of months, we might show up on your job site to do a site safety audit. And the point is to come without advance notice, so that we really get a look at conditions as they are, and not something that's been prepared a little bit. So yeah, that unannounced site audit is an important component of it. And we go through and we do a hazard identification walkthrough. We're looking for the focus 4 hazards: falls, electrical, struck by and caught between. We'll still look at, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to only look at those, but if we do see one of those hazards, that's going to be generally considered a failed Pride audit, unless there's really extenuating circumstances or something behind it that changes the dynamic. But in a great majority of the cases, if we see somebody working at heights not tied off in a trench without shoring or shielding or sloping or anything like that, that's going to be a failed Pride audit. And it doesn't happen often, okay? Because accounts, AGC member companies who have gotten this far in the Pride process typically are not going to have that type of exposure. But just as an example, if we see that kind of thing, that'll be a failed Pride audit. Let's see, we're going to be doing job site audits up until September 30th. So we like to get them scheduled as soon as we can once you finish the program review. We are going to try to have a different safety management consultant do more of the job site audits. So let's say you're working with a primary safety management consultant. Let's say it's me or Nathan, Mark, and you go through your program review with them. We're going to try to set it up to where that person does one of your job site audits, but then a different consultant is going to do the other 2, just to give a good, different set of eyes and a diverse mix of people looking at your sites. And then I mentioned earlier the whole qualification application question 15 about general contractors. If you're subbing out any work, requiring sub-tier contractors to meet or exceed both your safety policies and OSHA policy or OSHA requirements. So job site audits as well, if we see one of your subcontractors that are exposed to one of these hazards, that will also be a failed audit. And there's a real clear line of continuity from the application to the program review to the site audits, where we're seeing all the way through, hey, if you're a GC or if you're subbing work out and you're telling us, yeah, we require this and we enforce it and we've got programs and policies in place, then we really want to see that in action when we're on site. And some of the other things we want to see on site is just, you know, on the qualification application, you see, I believe it's question 6. There's a section that, or the question asks that, hey, are you prioritizing the hierarchy of controls with the way that you control hazards on site? And so we're going to kind of look for that too. When, you know, for example, let's say, you know, if you're exposed to a hazard and your primary method of control is PPE, but there's a better way to do it. You know, there's an engineering control that's kind of a well-regarded, well-established control in industry. We'll have that conversation with you about, hey, okay, these people might not be exposed because they've got this control in place, but let's talk about better ways to do this. Let's talk about continuous improvement. Okay. And that will look different on different sites and different conditions, you know. I mean, there's obviously an element of professional judgment that everybody will have, but in general, overall, you know, we're looking at the focus for, we're looking for you to prioritize controls based on the hierarchy of controls, and we're looking for you, if you're in a job site management position, we're looking for you to control that site and do frequent and regular job site inspections so that any of your sub-tier contractors are adhering to your rules. Okay. All right. I know that's a lot. Okay. So let's say you got through all that. Okay. Got through, submit the application, got through the statistical stuff, got through the program review, did 3 job site audits, and you passed them all. Then you are part of a cohort that graduates Pride. And how we set this up is job site audits, the whole season ends September 30th. And then we've got this kind of intervening month of October where we get our ducks in a row. And then you get an email in November around the beginning of the month that says, hey, you're a preliminary winner. Congratulations. These are next steps. And then you get your award in January, February at the annual business meeting. But for the purpose of the application of the inspection, the focused inspection criteria that Oregon OSHA has, that is applied the next calendar year. And you'll see at the tail end of this presentation, I have a graphic that shows 2026 on the bottom of the Pride logo. And we just made that change this year to help industry and regulators understand, you know, okay, for this specific calendar year, this deferral apply, or this focused inspection criteria applies, because we want it clear across the board. We don't want anybody being inspected and not receiving the benefit of that focused inspection if they would otherwise be eligible for it. Okay. So that's kind of the cadence, is we're looking for March 1st to September 30th. That's the season. Once you graduate, you do it in a group with all the rest of the Pride employers who achieve the award, and the focused inspection criteria applies the next calendar year. Okay. Let's see. So Pride is open. Yeah, I think I've hammered that home pretty good now. If you have questions or want to get your application in or work with any of your safety management consultants or me as the Pride Awards coordinator, doors wide open. We're happy to help. We want to answer your questions, and we want to make sure you're successful in the Pride program. Because certainly, you know, we want you to be a member of the group that sits in those statistics that we just looked at, that sits on that list of the companies honored in the Daily Journal of Commerce ad. We want you to be part of that group. That's our whole job, is to make sure that we're keeping employees safe. And this process is a very intense look at your safety program, ultimately with an eye toward preventing injuries. Okay. So let me open it up at this point. And I feel like I've just been flying blind because I just have not been able to see anybody with that big old PowerPoint on my screen. If anybody has questions, or any of the safety management consultants here have some commentary about anything we've talked about, I know I blew through a lot of material pretty quick. But if there's any questions or just comments in general, let's open it up and have a little feedback. And if not, that's fine too.
I know one of the things that I've been asked is, have we specifically failed any companies? And I'll answer, and then you can add to it if you want. But I mean, statistically speaking, we've had companies apply that haven't qualified, and that's pretty easily determined if your statistics aren't matching what we've talked about already. And then we have had in the past job site audits that have not passed. We've seen focus 4 hazards. And thankfully, I think up to this point, and Nathan, maybe correct me too, I think all of those have been from GCs that had subcontractors. So the subcontractor had the focus 4 hazard. And so the GC that was going through the PRIDE process was not the one, not their employees. And so in that case, we stopped the PRIDE visit audit, and then we would reschedule and revisit it. So thankfully that wasn't a disqualifier immediately. But anything to add there?
Yeah, one thing I want to mention is a lot of times we'll identify the focused 4 exposure. But in the spirit of improvement, we continue the job site audit, but we'll recognize that site's not going to pass. And one thing I wanted to mention, Holt touched on this, but there is going to be, for those of you that have been in the PRIDE program for a while, there's going to be even more of an emphasis on what your subcontractors are doing. And it's supposed to be, the people that are on the project are not supposed to know that we're coming to their project on that day, or that their project has been selected. And one of the things that we've seen in the past is, hey, we have a safety guy on site. We're not going to tell everybody else on the project that we're coming, but at least our safety guy needs to know. In general, that goes against the spirit of what we're doing. That's a site-specific safety person on that project. And the best move is to tell everybody in your company. And the reason I'm bringing up now is what Alden said about subcontractors is you can tell your subcontractors too. We are a part of the PRIDE program. When we have an audit that happens on this project, landscape subcontractor, if you don't have locates on the ground and you're digging in the ground where there's potential power, electrocution, we will, as a general contractor, we will fail this audit. So you don't have to tell them that we're coming to their project, but do tell everybody at your company and all your subcontractors we're part of the PRIDE program, and the expectation is that we act as such.
And we're not trying to catch them. I would say it's not a catch you. It's really just, as you all know, being in safety. The giving them a heads up is a way for them just to their focus changes, and so we just want to see the continuous improvement, the job site the way it usually is run. So looks like Abel's got his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Abel.
Sorry about that. Good morning. Thanks for having me. As primarily a subcontractor, my question would be, the majority of the general contractors that we work for are in the PRIDE program and receiving PRIDE awards. Will you guys be doing, if it's for us or for that general contractor that we're working for, can you double tap and do them both at the same time? Or will, if you're there on our behalf, be doing ours and then come back 2 days later and do theirs?
That's a good question. I'm going to say we've done it both ways in the past. I don't see anything wrong with being efficient, doing both at the same time. That I know there's a lot of structure around doing these audits and a lot of requirements, and so we want to balance that with the needs of industry and the fact that you guys have to build stuff. And so if we're introducing a kind of too much form in how we do this, then I think that starts to run afoul of our intent. But I'll let any of the other SMCs comment if they have thoughts on that.
You answered that really well.
I do have a comment, and that is, Abel, nice use of the word double tap.
There's a question in the comments there. I'll read it, and then maybe one of you can respond. So it's, as a subcontractor, will a Pride job site walk be stopped if a GC or another sub is observed doing a focus 4?
We won't. So let's say if you're the sub that we're there for, we're not going to stop it for you. I mean, we will, generally speaking, right? There are some instances in which there's a job site hazard where every sub is exposed to, and we've got to get it right before we proceed. But that dips a little bit into the multi-employer work site, creating, controlling, exposing, correcting dynamic. And we're going to use our professional judgment in the field to determine, okay, unravel the spaghetti a little bit on that, and then say, okay, this is what it looks like to us. But overall, if we're there for you as a subcontractor and there are other hazards that your employees are not exposed to, we'll certainly take the opportunity to discuss that with the general. But we wouldn't, we wouldn't hold you accountable for hazards that you weren't creating or exposed to.
Yeah, also, if you're a subcontractor and you're working for a general contractor, they're not an AGC member, they're not a part of the Pride program, we're going to be very protective of your relationship with who you're working for and not create a lot of grief. We don't want the general contractor to be sorry that you're a part of the Pride program. So we understand that relationship, and we will act accordingly.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
I will weigh in. I was
Please.
giving time for. I just want to talk about there's some segments of industry, roofing, excavation, masonry, where there's exceptions that apply to those industries that don't apply to the rest of construction. For example, if you're working on a roof, roofing contractors allow roof monitors. If you're around an excavation, some of the fall protection requirements don't always apply to you. And so one of the things we wanted to emphasize is if you're standing at the top of a 20-foot deep excavation, you may not be breaking any OSHA rules, but there is still an exposure to a fall, which is an exposure to a hazard. And one of the requirements of the Pride program is not that there be fall protection around every excavation, or not that there's the roof monitoring system for roofers. The expectation is that you apply the hierarchy of controls, and whatever is feasible, you apply the best control to protect your employees. We recognize that, especially around excavations, most times when you're implementing fall protection systems around an excavation, you're actually introducing a greater hazard. But we ask that your crews or your company go through an evaluation to make sure that what you're doing makes the most sense. I know I'm speaking kind of broadly, but you can work with your assigned SMC on what that would look like. But what we're looking for in general is something as opposed to nothing. There's a lot of excavation contractors that never do fall protection because they don't have to. That's not really in the spirit of what the Pride program is. So keep that in mind. If anybody has any questions about that, you can fire away now.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm going to put the link to the website in the chat. And while we're here, I'll give you guys a quick glimpse here. So if you go to the AGC homepage, you can find the Pride website if you go down into the safety section and then go further down into the Pride section there. And it's going to take you here. Gives you a little bit of overview. We link to the program directive that we were talking about, the focused inspection criteria there with Oregon OSHA. And then application process. There's the timeline we talked about pretty extensively here. Okay, the marketing materials section where our logo is updated for all our accounts for 2026. Next year, it'll say 2027. Program phases. So the application, program audit, job site audit, just like we talked about there. There's a picture of somebody getting an award from our previous board of directors president at the annual business meeting. Requirements, OSHA considerations, what needs to be in a Pride application packet, and then all of your program documents linked right here. Okay, so here's where you can get them, download them. If you forget or need a copy, feel free to reach out to any one of us. We can email you a PDF and go through it with you. But this is your kind of homepage, one-stop shop for Pride information and the documents you need for the program. Okay. Right. Well, thank you all for being here. I don't have any more content, so I'm going to open it up one more time. Any questions and comments? Abel, go ahead, sir.
Sorry about that. I waited till the
Yeah.
very end, but some of our job site windows right now, everybody understands the economy is what it is. So our smaller jobs, the durations are somewhat short, us being the concrete contractor, right? We're the first ones in and the first ones out. Would it be out of the question to email the SMCs like, hey, we're only going to be here for 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks? So, because I don't want to be penalized that we don't have enough work going to complete those audits, those unannounced audits, before September, I believe it was. So just giving you the window of time where we'll be so that you guys can get it calendared and try to get those completed.
Oh yeah, we absolutely want you to do that, and we want to work around your schedule. I mean, again, you guys are the ones doing the work. So if you know of a window of time that you're going to be working in, we will make it a priority to be available during that time. And if one of us can't, then the other will. We'll spread it out as a team. And we can even, depending on your situation, if you haven't done the program review yet, but you've got a job going that's really a good one and representative of the work you're doing, we can get out on that job and do one of an audit for the purpose of one of your job site audits for the Pride program, and then subsequently do the program review, in anticipation of a past program review. And if you don't pass the program review, then it is what it is. I mean, you'd still benefit from doing the site walk with us, but we try to be very mindful of your schedules and timelines and adjust accordingly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate, y'all spend the time, everyone stuck around the whole time. That's great. Appreciate just the attention. Feel free to reach out to any one of us. Like I said, I'm the Pride Awards coordinator. I'm happy to talk through any questions you might have offline. I'll send this recording out to you through a mass email. Once we get done here, give me a day or two and I'll figure that out. And then, like I said, the website has the documents you need, has the information about the program, but don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us if you have questions, concerns, or comments. Okay. So looking forward to a good Pride season this year. I'm going to stop recording. There we go. Okay.